Hey team, I'm back with some more season mods, and it's everyone's favorite, engine mods. Yay, so relatable. It's what we're here for. Let's make NA power. So this one's actually due to you, the viewers, so thanks for the feedback on the videos. I had a user named VQ Performance suggest Merlin Machining and their Holly LS style HIRAM intake adapter kit. This was then, repeated by a few users on Instagram that said they wanted to see how it would perform. I took a look at the product with some interest because my engine has been running, choking up high in the RPMs for air in the past few seasons. For those of you not familiar with the entire backstory, this engine used to be an Onpoint Dyno shop car with ITBs making 372 wheel horsepower on a Dyno Jet. I bought most of the engine in 2013 and have been running detuned with different versions of a stock intake because I wasn't prepared to spend an estimated 7,000 Canadian dollars on a Gen V ITB kit and a more capable ECU for what is essentially 40 wheel horsepower. That would work out to $175 per wheel horsepower, and sometimes I like to seem like I'm being reasonable with build money. This has never been a shop-owned test bed or marketing build. OBX makes ITBs that are direct knockoffs of Gen V, but everyone I know that knows more than me says to avoid using them, so I do. Merlin Machining takes an LS intake manifold and makes an adapter which bolts to the upper intake plenum of the VQ35DE. It mates it up to a GM throttle body, either 90 or 87 millimeter, through a jumper harness, and then after up rev tuning, it should work great? ? I have no idea. It can't be that easy. I'm just expecting a problem. I sent some messages to Merlin Machining and he was very helpful. I would recommend checking out the Merlin Machining website for yourself. As I described in an earlier video this season, I already have a proven effective modified upper OEM plenum. So for the Merlin Machining HIRAM kit to make sense for me to just flat out buy it, it would have to outperform my modified OEM plenum by quite a lot to make financial sense. I'd already turned down Gen V ITBs for years at $175 per wheel horsepower. So the Merlin Machining is $1,700 US shipped. That's 2,155 Canadian dollars. And if you throw in an additional $400 in brokerage, duties, and taxes, it ends up being $2,555 at the door. So what's a reasonable dollar per horsepower expectation? Well, that depends what your goals are. I'll put some discussion on horsepower per dollar in the description because at this point, it makes the video drag on too long. I'd love to try an experiment comparing the Merlin HIRAM to my modified OEM plenum for the channel, and I'd like to dyno them back to back and publish the data. If it worked out, it would be good for Merlin Machining because it would give all of you an independent review of an off-the-shelf component that you could bolt on for easy power instead of asking me where I got my intake made, which was a one-off. But it's an expensive experiment. It's one I obviously don't feel like privately funding for limited, if any, benefits to myself. I don't have a performance shop that has to prove what I can do to attract customers. And this channel has less than 5,000 subs, so that alone won't support the experiment. So for now, it's on the back burner. So on to the compromise for this season. Through Merlin Machining, I found that Nisformance sells this LS to VQ35DE throttle body jumper harness that apparently allows the OEM Nissan ECU to control a GM throttle body with an up rev tune. It's a nice long cord, and since it's designed to work with the HIRAM, that will make it easy to work with my throttle body because it is relocated to partway up the engine bay. That's a fairly ideal solution for me as I already have something usable. I don't know if that makes it as easy to use for you. Good luck. As I pointed out, my intake has this constriction at the throttle body where I have a 75 millimeter throttle body installed. When it was first made, this intake had a 90 millimeter throttle body in that location that was cable driven. So that brings us to this big boy, the 90 millimeter GM throttle body, part number 12605-109. It fits in there pretty well. This is the 90 millimeter versus the stock 70 millimeter, and of course I have a 75 millimeter installed. It's a little bit bigger. I was warned that switching to a throttle body of this size could make some high-end power on my car since it's starving for air, but the throttle body response will likely be worse, so we'll have to see how all of this works on the dyno. Quick looking up of some numbers show a throttle body of this size can flow about 44% more air through this constriction than a 75mm throttle body. That doesn't necessarily mean it will make a ton of power because the bottleneck could just establish it somewhere else. So the power gains at this point are unknown, but they'll be tested later. This throttle body was apparently $369 from Canada. I didn't have to pay anything extra. The harness somehow ended up $171, including taxes and delivery from USA. With the border closed, I just can't drive across the border to pick stuff up at a US shipping depot, and that has made everything much more expensive this year. I do have a running total of all of these adding up, and just stay tuned for it later. Ideally, once it's together, I'd actually like to show some roll races against cars of similar power to weight ratio. I'll see you at my track days and just ask some rando people around the paddock to line up with me down the main straight and maybe post some videos of that. In the end, the vast majority of channel subscribers here are just here for the engine and want to see some real life comparisons. All right, that's all I have planned for this update. Stay tuned for more to come.